So let's talk about warmth and insulation. We had a cheese survey conducted. Now that was a sort of an 80 quid infrared thermal survey where an expert walks around your property with an infrared camera and highlights all the spots where cold is coming into the house, where there are drafts and things that you can improve the insulation of the house. And this is one thing that we did as a result. Whoop, get my finger in the right place. This messy block here really was one of the results of it. We identified there was an air brick here, and that air brick was basically bleeding in cold air into this particular bedroom. We filled it. You can see the grey stuff is the cavity insulation, the silicon beads that are in the cavity wall behind. But we also put in this expanding foam. It's a bit of a mess at the moment. It needs tidying, but that made a significant difference to the warmth of this particular room. And then more insulation efforts. This is a Loft Hatch which has got a fair bit of polystyrene foam on it. It does tend to get a bit knocked and battered, but it's good at keeping the heat in from the loft space. And if you look up there, that big chunk of board there, just up there, that is all covering insulation. There's 12 inches of glass wool insulation in there that we boarded over so that we can use the space, but that's very effective at keeping the warmth in. So as well as the insulation measures, let me show you one of these. This, see on the profile, it's got a bit of a wedge shape. This is a radiator foil panel, and I would recommend these. These are a good measure. They're not terribly expensive. You can cut them to size, and basically you slip them down the back of your radiators. They've got some self-adhesive tape that you stick to the backs, and you just put it behind the radiator, and the wedge shape helps the air at the back of the radiator keep moving upwards, and obviously the foil helps to stop it transmitting heat from the radiator into the wall. Very effective. A noticeable difference in terms of the radiators on the infrared survey that have this foil backing in. Not all of them were accessible, so we didn't do all of them. But it's a real noticeable difference in the performance of the radiators. The walls aren't getting the heat, and therefore all the heat is coming out into the room. So I'd recommend putting those around your room. They're called Heat Keeper, I think is the brand. And further insulation measures. This was one of the draftier spaces in the house. A poorly constructed PVC double glazed door which lets in quite a little draft. But luckily there's an internal door, and you can see on this internal door here that we put in some foam draft proofing, and that really made a big difference to the amount of draft that was coming through if you close the internal door. So a cheap measure, and one that the cheese survey highlighted. And then a final real part of the sort of cheese survey is drafts under doors. These bifold doors are great, but the way we fitted them means that the brush on the underside of the doors tend to get worn away by the opening mechanism, by when it opens and brushes against the floor. And so we have found that there's quite a lot of bleed of heat under this door during the winter especially. And the thermal survey really highlighted how much that was, and we've simply remedied that by putting a snake, one of these filled foam snakes that you can make yourself in front of that door during the winter. And the final aspect, perhaps I should mention about the cheese survey, there are many more, but I'll just leave it at this one, is floors. This floor here is particularly uninsulated. It's just a concrete floor that goes straight to the ground, and the cheese survey did highlight that. Fortunately, it's a room that is rarely used. It's just a utility room where we've got our white goods, and so this floor here we can park for the moment and just close the doors, and it doesn't really have too much of a heat impact on the house.